The second night I recorded the same thing. And the third. 47 minutes exactly, from 3:17 to 4:04. The same murmur. The same structure. But with variations, like a musician who plays the same piece each night but improvises upon it, adding ornaments, altering the tempo, exploring the edges of the melody. On the fourth morning, I connected the recorder to my laptop and opened the phonetic analysis software I use in my work. What I saw on the screen cost me 2 days of sleep. A spectrogram converts sound into image. The horizontal axis is time, the vertical is frequency, and intensity is represented by color. Darker means more energy. A human voice produces a recognizable pattern, clear formants, regular harmonics, fundamental frequencies between 85 and 300 Hz for adults. It is like an acoustic fingerprint. Every language, every person, every phoneme has its own. What the spectrogram showed was not a human voice. The fundamental frequency was below 20 Hz infrasound, technically inaudible to the human ear, though my recorder captured it. But above that impossible bass, the harmonics were organized with a regularity that could not be natural. It was not wind in a pipe. It was not seismic activity. It was no acoustic source I could identify. And the formants, the concentrations of energy that in a human language correspond to vowels, were there. Clear. Defined. Different from anything I had seen in 15 years of work. I did what any linguist would do with an unknown corpus. I began to segment. I searched for repetitions. I found units that recurred frequently, what in linguistics we call morphemes, the minimal units of meaning. I counted at least 40 distinct ones in the first 10 minutes. A functional language requires between 30 and 50 phonemes. This had the complexity of a real language. And then I saw something that made me pull my hands from the keyboard as though it burned. The same 3 units appearing together, in the same order, 7 times across the 47 minutes. 3 units. A tripartite pattern. Something that repeated like a refrain or like a name. I needed a comparison sample. I needed to hear the old women's language. I found her by chance. Or so I believed at the time. Miren was buying bread at the village's only bakery, a tiny shop that smelled of warm dough and anise. 75 years old, white hair gathered in a low bun, reading glasses hanging from her neck on a silver chain. She had the face of a schoolteacher, which is what she had been for 40 years at the school in Erdax. She looked at me with curiosity but without conscious intensity. An open look, almost kind. "You're the girl from the university," she said in Spanish, with a Navarrese accent as thick as honey. "Inaki has told me about you." I asked if we could talk. She said yes. She invited me to her house, which was small and full of books, shelves on every wall, stacks on the floor, an encyclopedia open on the kitchen table as if it were breakfast reading. A teacher's house. I explained my work. I told her about languages dying each year, 14 per year according to UNESCO, 1 every 26 days. I told her that every language lost is a way of understanding the world that vanishes forever. Miren nodded. Not with the condescension of someone listening to a speech, but with the gravity of someone who knows what you are talking about. "There are 3 of us," she said. "Conchi, Ain, and me. Conchi is the one who knows the most. I learned from my mother-in-law, Conchi's mother. Ain learned from hers. 3 families. 3 lines. Always 3. I asked if the language had a name. Miren hesitated. It was a long hesitation, the kind that tells you the person is not searching for the answer but deciding whether to give it to you. "It has no name, you should know," she said. "If I tell you, you'll give it shape. And there are things that work better without shape." I asked if I could hear it. Just hear it. No recorder. No notes. Just my ears. Miren looked at me. She drew a breath. And spoke 3 words. I cannot transcribe them. Not with the Latin alphabet, not with the International Phonetic Alphabet, which can represent any human sound. Any human sound. But Miren's 3 words were not entirely that. The first sounded like wind passing between 2 stones that nearly touch. The second contained a vowel that changed quality mid-emission, as though 2 people were pronouncing it simultaneously. The third ended with a vibration that came not from the throat but from the chest, from deeper still, as though it resonated in the bones. Egun on, Miren translated, smiling. Good morning. Good morning. 3 words. 3 syllables containing phonemes that no human language uses. I returned to the guest house nearly running. I opened the spectrogram of the nocturnal recording. I compared the formants of Miren's 3 words, which I had memorized, with the precision that training provides to the murmur from beneath the earth. They were identical. The same harmonic structure. The same impossible frequencies. The same vibration resonating below the human range. The old women of Zugarramurdi spoke the same language as whatever murmured beneath my room. Ain Goikoetsia lived alone in a farmhouse a kilometer from the village, at the end of a dirt track that in October was more mud than road. The farmhouse was old stone walls a meter thick, oak beams blackened by centuries of smoke, a door you had to push with your shoulder because the wood had swollen with moisture until it filled the entire frame. Ain opened it with her hands caked in soil. She had been in the garden in October, under the fog, with bare hands in the mud. 68 years old, a sinewy body shaped by a lifetime of physical work, grey hair cut without aesthetic purpose, restless eyes that never settled on anything for long. She did not invite me in. She spoke with me on the threshold, the door half closed behind her, as though the house contained something she did not want me to see, or as though she were the border between 2 worlds and was deciding which of the 2 I belonged to. I told her who I was. I told her what I wanted. I asked if she would be willing to talk to me about the language. Ain regarded me in a way I initially mistook for hostility. But it was not that. It was something closer to hunger. As though she had spent years waiting for someone to ask her precisely that question, and now that she had it before her did not know what to do with it. I have no daughters, she said, suddenly, apropos of nothing. From Concha's line came Jones, her grandson, who had Maite. Miren had her girls, who went to Pamplona and want nothing to do with any of it. But I have no one. When I die, what I know dies with me. It was the first time anyone had spoken of the language as something that was inherited. Not learned, inherited. Like a house. Like an illness. Like a duty. Would you like me to help you document it? I asked. So it won't be lost. Ain opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked toward the forest surrounding the farmhouse, enormous beeches, dark, motionless in the fog like sentinels that had not moved in centuries. She rubbed her soil-covered hands. Come tomorrow, she said. But don't bring machines. Not yet. And she closed the door. I met him that same night at the village bar. The only bar, 6 formica tables, a television on with no sound, a zinc counter behind which a man who seemed fused with the furniture served beers and pinsos with the same expression since, probably, 1987. Landa Olezola was sitting at the back table with a field notebook and a whiskey. 50 years old, a greying beard trimmed with care, a good wool jumper, worn hiking boots. He looked like what he was, an academic who had been out of the academy for some time, a man who had left the office for the field and had no intention of going back. He introduced himself before I could decide whether I wanted to speak with him. You're the linguist from UPV. It was not a question. Landa Olezola, ethnographer. I've been here 5 years studying the oral traditions of the area. You should have consulted me before you came. He did not say that last part aggressively. He said it with the assurance of someone who considers his territory marked. I asked what he knew about the old women's language. I know it's not a dialect, he said. I know it's older than Basque. And I know they're going to die without passing it on because they're stubborn old women who'd rather take it to the grave than share it with anyone. There was bitterness in that. 5 years of trying to access something 3 elderly women had denied him. I asked if he had managed any recordings. He shook his head. Not a single syllable. But you're different. They see me as an outsider. A Biscayan who came to take advantage. But you. He looked at me with an expression I could not read. Inaki told me your mother was from here. I had not told Inaki that. Or had I could not remember. The conversation had been quick, the first day, between coffee and introductions. Perhaps I mentioned it without giving it importance. Perhaps Inaki found out on his own. Small villages know things that no one has told them. Lander offered to collaborate. He had 5 years of ethnographic notes, contacts in the village, maps of the area, knowledge of the historical context. I had the ear, the software, and apparently the advantage of local blood. I accepted. It seemed reasonable. 2 researchers covered more ground than one. I did not ask why an ethnographer had spent 5 years in a village of 200 inhabitants without publishing anything. I should have. That night, before sleep, I did something I had been putting off for days. I opened my laptop and entered the Navarra Civil Registry database. I searched for my mother, Izaskan Goicoetsia Irayat. Born in Zugarramurdi, 1962. Emigrated to Madrid, 1980. Married Mikel Echeverria Landa, 1986. Mother of Amaya Echeverria Goicoetsia, 1990. Died in Madrid, 2024. All correct. All known. But beneath my mother's name, in the siblings column, there was another name. Maite Goicoetsia Irayat. Born in Zugarramurdi, 1960. Died in Zugarramurdi, 1975. My mother had a sister. An older sister. A sister who died at 15 in the same village my mother left 3 years later and to which she never returned. My mother never mentioned a sister. Never. In 34 years of my life, not once. Not at Christmas dinners when she grew nostalgic, not on stormy nights when she told me stories of her childhood in the mountains, not in the final months in the hospital when she no longer had the strength to keep secrets. Or perhaps she did have the strength. Perhaps keeping that secret was what gave her strength. Maite. 15 years old. The same age Conchi was when she learned the language. I closed the laptop. I lay down on the bed. The recorder was on the nightstand, the red button glowing, waiting for 3:17. And as I waited, I thought about something Conchi had said, not with words but with her gaze. She had looked at me the way one looks at someone who should have come long ago. The way one looks at someone who is returning.